everybody, and welcome back to the HCT Winter Championship. My name's TJ, and I'm joined by the Admiral. That's Admirable. We're going to bring you guys the second decider match of the day. How you feeling today, Admirable?
I'm feeling fantastic, TJ. Thank you for asking. Our second decider match is bloodyface versus Faeli, and this is what I'm really looking forward to because bloodyface is a player who yesterday, played a little bit below what I would call his normal level of play. And he tweeted out afterwards, this is something I found interesting, was he tweeted out that he said he thought he was unfavored going into the match and that he needed to get a little bit lucky. And so he took some risks and it didn't really pay off for him. That makes a lot more sense in hindsight when you watch that match, because leading up to that point, I think he's played pretty technically fantastically over the last 2 seasons that's been there. But when you talk about that fantastic technical play, Faeli is definitely one of the players that comes to mind as well. This is a guy who has a very wide range of decks that he's able to play and play them very well. And this particular season, he has finally had this breakout performance where he has a chance to prove himself on a championship stage, but a titan of opponent to do it against with 1 match to go. And if he loses it, he's knocked out.
That's right, and a lot of tiebreaker implications, as we've been alluding to throughout the course of the last couple of days. If bloodyface does make it to that quarterfinals and books himself another spot in a top 4 at a championship, then we could have an interesting day number 4 before the finals tomorrow. But 2 of the best players in the scene right now. And I think back to the last championship where bloodyface got the runner-up to Language Hacker. I honestly think...
Handshake over
handshake,
I like that.
bloodyface has a very big traditional card game background, and Faeli as well, but maybe not as vocal about it as bloodyface. But to get back to my point, I honestly think that in the fall championship, bloodyface played the best out of any player. He took second, and Language Hacker did play exceptionally, but there was just some plays where bloodyface just blew my mind with how good he was, and wasn't surprised to see him qualify for a second one. And even himself, he said he still feels like he has a lot to prove. He wants to build his brand beyond just, I made it to a championship and I qualified for Worlds. He wants to create a legacy for himself and his name.
Yeah, I mean, he gave up, working a traditional job earlier in 2018 to pursue Hearthstone full-time, and so far it has paid in spades. And he very much treats it that exact same way. I hear talks of players going around, like a new game will come up and it'll be popular for a bit, and we'll hang on Discord and we'll play. And bloodyface has said, I've been tempted to play some other games, just relax, but that then takes away from what my craft is. My craft right now is to be the best Hearthstone player, and if I'm going to do that, I need to practice.
Yeah, and he said recently, because of just the ecosystem in Hearthstone right now, because this was the last chance for players to qualify for Worlds, there's kind of a lull in the action. He said it was hard to find practice partners. He said in order to practice, he would play games against himself. He would queue up the decks that he knew he was going to face and just play the matchup from both sides to see how each deck won, which is in itself kind of a creative way to practice a matchup, because knowing what your opponent's going to do, because your opponent is yourself, is a great way to get insight in how to play certain matchups.
Yeah, when I was a kid and I was playing cards, that was actually something I had done because I had read a book about Bobby Fischer, who was one of the greatest chess players of all time. And in his time, he would play games against himself. And what you have to do when you do that is remove the idea that you know what your opponent's holding in their hand or what your opponent is going to do from your head. And you have to approach it from a very top-down perspective. And if you're capable of doing that, it gives you a very unique perspective of how to look at the game when your opponent's doing something and what that means, because you've seen it happen face up and you've thought about this and you've gone through this motion. And at the high levels of play, almost every single one of these players is capable of thinking on that level. The question is just, are they right now thinking on that level? And so when you get to see those plays after you've practiced against yourself in that manner, it's a very unique feeling you get when you sit down and someone starts going through that motion that you yourself have done and seen yourself do.
Yeah, very unique style of practice, but was necessary. And getting into this first matchup, this one is interesting, and we saw one of the craziest games of this particular matchup yesterday in the elimination match, where Faeli was playing against Tyler, where Tyler wasn't able to piece together the damage combo to kill Faeli before the Togwaggle plus Azalina play was made. And then it got to this crazy situation where Tyler had all of these spells from Lyra, so much value in his hand, but he had a limited clock because of fatigue, and couldn't get it done, just barely. Few points of damage off for multiple turns in a row. So this matchup can get pretty crazy, and it's basically on a clock for the Cloning Gallery Priest to finish the game before Faeli's able to piece together that Togwaggle, Azalina, deck you out, take your cards, punch you in the
Beat you
face.
up.
Yeah. Glad we're on the same page today.
The set yesterday was something different. I don't think that Tyler played up to his normal standard in that particular game. And I think that Faeli got away with a win that he probably should not have had. And
I
now
agree.
that you flash forward to this moment, and Faeli's in this matchup again, you know, one of my questions is, was there anything that Faeli could have learned from that match? And is there anything that he can use and apply to this one in particular? We see Bloodyface, Shadow Visions, and pick up their Cloning Gallery, but right now, Velen's in hand, there is no Spellstone, there's no Eternal Servitude. So to me, it's looking like we could end up in a very similar point to that one from yesterday, where it is about the endgame big priest-esque style that Xerx's Cloning Gallery often goes towards when it can't get that one-turn kill. And Faeli, you know, it looks to me like the priority is get minions in play and start attacking. And I think that's very wise, because the more pressure you put on a Xerx's Cloning Gallery deck, the more likely they are to have to deviate away from one-turn kill setups. They don't have the liberty of doing that as much because you're threatening to kill them at that point.
Yeah, and there's kind of an interesting dynamic as well with the way this deck works and having to find Spellstones actually pretty quickly. It ends up being a key card, and when you realize that you're not going to be able to go for that Xerx's Cloning Gallery OTK early on in the game, then you have to try and piece together a win condition, assuming that it's going to have to be post-Togwaggle or close to it. And that relies almost entirely on Spellstone and rezzing and holding on to some burn and hoping you get the right resurrects. Taking a look at the deck list from Bloodyface, he has decided to go for the heavy combo variation, so no Witchwood Grizzlies. He does have a Lich King, however, which could do one of two things. One, could muddle up his pool of resurrects and get Lich King in a situation where you want Malygos or Velen. Or two, if he can get Lich King down early enough, could get a Death Grip, could take Azalina away. That's a possibility.
I like that you're thinking very far and ridiculously ahead.
That's a lot of times how this matchup ends. It's very ridiculously.
Well, I wasn't saying that facetiously. I like that you're thinking ridiculously far ahead.
Yeah, there's three ways that this matchup can go. One, Priest doesn't do anything. Druid togs Azalinas, wins the game. Number two, Druid doesn't do anything. Priest plays Xerx's Cloning Gallery on 9 and kills the Druid. Or three, shenanigans. There's very rare cases where it's just minion combat. Doesn't happen.
I'm looking forward to Minion Combat 11 coming out.
Love that film. Smart play.
Yeah, this is a very reasonable Psychic Scream for Bloodyface. It's just so much damage that you're facing down. And this puts 3 draws into Faeli's deck that I don't think he's too excited about at this point. You know, Faeli, with the draw on the Nourish on the previous turn, it's very clear that he wants to head into Dream Petal Florist and then try to get something done pretty darn quickly here. And with a Naturalize in hand, it is possible that Faeli can actually get a swap on the deck without having to have Azalina. And the way that that occurs is through naturalizing to fill your opponent's hand to 10 cards and then playing Togwaggle. The battle cry that puts the card in your opponent's hand that swaps the deck back can't go there. There's already 10 cards. So to me, I think this was quite a brilliant move for Faeli, where it's a little innocuous that could happen right now, but it's a trap I think that Bloodyface could very easily find himself fall into. This is a very natural turn for him to just play Prophet Velen in this spot. If that happens, I imagine Faeli's probably going for a naturalized Togwaggle and swap the deck.
Yeah, generally not the go-to win condition for the deck, but definitely a viable one because you're handing off to your opponent
a terrible collection of cards.
A terrible collection of cards. Basically just all cycle and some removal.
Yeah, he's going to be handing over to him an Arcane Tyrant, 2 Ironwood Golems, a Greedy Sprite, a Malfurion, and then like an Azalina and spreading plagues and stuff. Like,
but to be honest, you're not getting that great of stuff either.
you're getting a lot better stuff than what
you are getting a lot better stuff.
But Bloodyface here very wisely doing 2 things. Number 1, obviously killing the Dream Petal Florist. Number 2, keeping himself from being vulnerable to that combination.
Yeah, very smart.
Large sacrifice that he had to make to do that, though.
Yeah, Coin and Holy Smite, which could reduce, definitely reduce the burst potential in the late game. But with the way his hand is panning out, with both Radiant Elementals, with Velen already drawn, his ability to go for that 1-turn push relatively early is pretty much non-existent. He realized that he's going to have to eke out some value, maybe put on pressure and force Faeli to deviate his game plan.
Well, something to note, too, is that Bloodyface has drawn 3 of the minions. There's 9 in the deck. So right now, Xeric's Cloning Gallery copies everything in the deck. He has Eternal Servitude to resurrect Velen if it dies, and he does have Mind Blast and Smite. So we're looking at 20 damage from Mind Blast and 14 damage from Smite. And if he connects with Velen 1 time, that's enough for lethal right now. So Bloodyface is on the verge, I think, of beating down the door here and really putting Faeli in a situation where he doesn't seem like he has that strong options.
Yeah, he could remove this with Swipe plus Wrath, but then if there's a Resurrect that comes out on Velen.
That's the thing. It's like it's the problem with the removal turn from Faeli. You know, I would have eliminated this Velen. I'm not saying I wouldn't have. The issue is the timing of it, where it's into Bloodyface's turn 8, and it's very natural for him to just use Eternal Servitude, do nothing else. For Faeli, that ideally, when Bloodyface wants to use Eternal Servitude or a Spellstone or what have you, it's into a turn where Xeric's Cloning Gallery is an option, so you're disrupting it.
Yeah, and he might as well throw out the Radiance here because he saw 2 removal spells, and he's going to present the threat of Malagos. So Faeli's going to have to worry about this, and this is one of those situations where, like you mentioned, this sticks on the board, Xeric's Cloning Gallery comes out, pulls Malagos because there's 4 or less minions left in the deck.
Yeah, I mean,
you're in Chup.
Faeli, I think, does have the goods to get out of this situation, but yeah, I don't think you're exactly comfortable about it.
What? Are you thinking of Ferocious Howl? Wait, what? Well, he could Branching Paths for armor twice. It's also on Hero Power.
Yeah, it's totally okay to just tank the hit on the Velen, I think. You know, the damage that card's going to present, you know, it sucks to take 7, but I'd much rather take 7 than double all their spell damage when they have a Malagos potentially in play. You know, this is a turn where Faeli's not only thinking about Xerix, he's thinking about Bloodyface just simply playing a Malagos from hand. So there's a chance, I think, that he looks towards killing a Radiant Elemental, but I think it's just way wiser to kill the Velen. Not really think too much of it. But because 2 Radiants hit play, he's also thinking about Malagos from hand as well.
Yeah.
Not necessarily just Cloning Gallery.
Yep.
And a pretty easy Cloning Gallery.
And get all those minions in the Resurrect pool.
Yeah, and this is one of the problems with Swipe as well.
I forgot that Bloodyface actually runs 2 copies of Gilded Gargoyle plus the Lich King, which means that it wouldn't have been guaranteed to get Malagos last turn if both Radiance and Velen had survived because there's 5 minions.
But it's 80%, and Bloodyface is very willing to take that.
Oh yeah, if he was playing Xeric's Cloning Gallery that turn anyway, you're of course going to take that opportunity. We saw a situation where Roger yesterday had an opportunity for like a 75% chance for lethal, didn't take it, got killed from like 20 the next turn.
Yeah, that was a situation that I was not happy about.
Surrender to Madness.
You know, I'm
2 copies.
I'm curious if Surrender's actually playable here. There's still 4 minions left, or I'm sorry, 5 minions left in the deck, and you're giving up 2 mana crystals, but what are you really actually doing with that mana right now? Like, obviously, Ultimate Infestation is on deck, but you could still cast that next turn if you Surrender to Madness here.
I actually love the Surrender to Madness here.
It's not that bad.
Gonna hold on.
I don't think it's that good, but it's not that bad.
Death Grip. There's still 2 Ironwood Golems and an Arcane Tyrant left in the deck. Bloodyface should know this because he's the one who Psychic Screamed them back into the deck. Other than that,
Greedy Sprite.
There's a Greedy Sprite,
Azalina,
and I think the second Arcane Tyrant.
Yeah.
So still quite a few minions left.
So 1 and 6 still, though.
1 and 6, and from
to
a
steal
card,
the Azalina. That's the key one.
that is the key one. Because then it puts Faeli into a situation where he has to rely on bloodyface filling his hand and not letting him get the King's Ransom at all.
Faeli is in bad shape here, just having to go for the ultimate station. He's going to end up overdrawing a card and then one next turn as well.
My hand is too full.
Uh-oh. That's 3 minions that just came out of the deck as well.
So I think there's 2 Arcane Tyrants and Azalina.
Yeah, and Faeli can't play a card this turn, and I don't disagree with the ultimate infestation play. I was looking at Nourish, perhaps, as an option.
Oh, here we go! Arcane Tyrant. Wow. That was a 33.3% chance to effectively end the game.
No, use the surrender! I'm very upset. I wanted to see Surrender of Madness into this.
Bloodyface is going to burn a card here as well. He already, because of Zerek's Cloning Gallery, has all the minions in his Resurrect pool. Mind Blast, though.
I actually don't think the Mind Blast is relevant right now.
There's so many pink and purple cards. I can't tell if there's burn. There's not.
2 Surrender to Madness, a Spirit Lash,
and
a Shadow Word Death, a Shadow Essence, Arcane Tyrant, of course, taken, Spellstone, Gilded Drake, Mass Hysteria, and another Spellstone.
I think he has to empty something here. Actually, no matter which way.
Yeah, just play Tyrant. It's easy.
Yeah.
Play Surrender! Play it!
My hand is too
So now, wow.
So
that probably doesn't matter, though.
That's just as good as Death Gripping it.
Yeah, but, well, the thing about it is I think we're past the stage of that part mattering. That's long-term. Faeli has the problem of just being able to live.
Yeah.
I think that's really the task at hand. Losing the Azalina, though, it does mean that Faeli has a much tougher time getting this done. However, there's 10 cards in Bloodyface's hand.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the Azalina not necessarily being a factor other than, perhaps some extra gas for Faeli. The problem is just what's on board.
Yeah. Ooh, Faeli draw swipe. He can swipe, Togwaggle, and naturalize to swap the decks.
Gets a hero power in as well.
Admiral, I think this
No, he does not.
I think this falls under the category of shenanigans.
Yeah, this is definitely some shenanigans here. I guess my question is, do you need to naturalize here? But you probably do. So decks have been swapped. Bloodyface cannot swap them back. And he's drawing from Faeli's deck now, which has no more minions remaining, and a naturalize gets burned. That's actually very important because now Bloodyface doesn't have a way to try to even that fatigue war again, and it's also 1 less removal card he gets. The issue is that there's 2 Spellstones in hand, and I'm not sure Faeli can get past that without drawing, pretty close to perfect from the remains of what Bloodyface had. So I apologize that I haven't been tracking everything from that.
All right, so he's got a...
But that's why he wasn't using Shadow or Surrender to Madness. He didn't want to buff the deck and have Faeli take it away.
That makes a lot of sense. That actually does make a lot of sense.
And
so
Bloodyface gets the note, and you saw the deep breath and the posture that Bloodyface took with that. Like, wow, I have to win with this, or I don't win.
Yeah. So Faeli in those 8 cards has a Malagos, has a Ziliax.
I actually believe that's an 11-card deck from Faeli. When it swaps over, the counter loses track of it because Togwaggle is a pretty crazy card. It's like when you swap in Fatigue and suddenly it'll say -1. Togwaggle does some pretty crazy things that just never happens in any card game ever. Like literally swapping decks with your opponent. That's not a thing.
And Bloodyface has 5 cards left in his deck. We're getting card counts right now,
10.
5 and 10.
So we had 11 going into
11
the turn.
and then the draw. And within that 10 cards is pretty much all the minions we saw pull from Xerxes because the only one he drew was Gilded Gargoyle.
Yeah.
So there's a Ziliax, there's a Malagos, there's a Lyra, and a Lich King.
Yeah. So Faeli does have a lot left in deck. The issue, again, is still going to be remaining alive through the board state that's taking place. But a lot of armor in hand. Branching Paths, Ferocious Howl, Oaken Summons, and Spirit Lash, plus the 2 3/6s to toss.
Yeah.
It's realistic that Faeli takes this. Of course, I say that and I look back at Bloodyface's hand with the Death and Decay. And
Death and Decay double Spellstone.
yeah, it's going to be tough.
Wait,
but
only a single Spellstone.
yeah, he used the Spellstone last turn.
Yeah. To bring back the the cards that were swiped away. Not the best outcome, but honestly, his pool was kind of weird at that point. A spreading plague.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be drawing a lot of that nonsense for a while now.
He's got a twig.
Ooh.
He's got a twig. He's got Malfurion the Pestilent.
Do you know what Anduin says when he attacks
No.
the hero?
No. What does he say?
I think he goes, "By the light!" Like whacks you with his staff.
What else is in the deck?
There's another copy of Spreading Plague.
Spreading Plague, Malfurion, Twig.
I believe 1 Branching Paths.
No, not a branching pass. He used a branching pass for armor for the first spellstone.
Okay.
Innervate, and maybe second Lesser Jasper spellstone. Is the 5 cards?
1 Jasper was overdrawn.
Oh, okay, so no.
No Arcane Tyrant.
Ooh, he did get Lyra and Malagos.
Wow.
This is going to allow him to push. Can Mind Visions?
Okay.
Divine Spirit?
Yeah, well, the Malagos...
He's got to go quick.
The Malagos is not dying anytime soon, and neither is the Lyra in this instance.
Holy Nova? Shadow Form?
I do think Faeli's done in here because he has no way to answer this Malagos, and there's Burn in hand, finally. So Faeli's done. He also has to answer, every minion in play as well. So just too big of a turn for bloodyface. And that's a large part of how the matchup iterates, is like you don't get a big kill, but you have a ton of end game if it gets to that point.
Yeah.
So much of your deck is dedicated to just putting big stuff in play.
What?
And a lot of the things we talked about happen. You got to draw the spellstones before they swap the decks. Check.
You got to steal an Ultimate Infestation with a Mind Vision.
Check. It was basically just draw your spellstones before they swap the decks, and 2, shenanigans.
Yeah.
Check. Check. Is there...
There's no predictable pattern to this.
Is there...
I want someone who's one of those math wizards to tell me how many different iterations there are of that particular board in Mass Hysteria. And I want you to show your math as well. Like, I didn't think I would ever use that from when I was like in 4th grade. And they're like, show your math. But I'm just curious to see what it looks like. It's not that I really care. I just want to know what it looks like.
I think there was a potential chance for a clear if everything attacked into the Malagos and then the Malagos attacked into the Lyra. Maybe. I think 1 minion was guaranteed to live, but regardless, bloodyface takes game 1 over Faeli, and a win with the Xerx's Cloning Gallery Priest, which we've honestly seen struggle a little bit outside of the times that it's killed its opponent on turn 9.
Yeah, it's something to behold for sure. As bloodyface says, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm leaving. Taking a quick break.
Too much shenanigans.
Players do have that liberty to take breaks, of course. They're going to be up there for quite a while. And there is an infamous play where Pavel made a big blunder versus Life Coach a couple years back playing for Spot at Worlds. And I remember after Pavel had won Worlds and got to a championship, and we asked him about that, and he went, "Oh yeah, I had to pee really bad." I was just like, just go.
It can weigh into your mind a lot.
He lost the game because of that.
And speaking of that, I got to step away from the desk for a bit, so we're going to go to a quick break, but don't go anywhere. More HCT Winter Championship coming up right after this.
The name Bloodyface is not like something that has super significance with me. I was drunk playing Hearthstone with my friends at like 3 in the morning, and I was making an account, and I'd never played the game before, and we were watching a TV show called American Horror Story, and I was just could not think of a screen name, so I literally put down the first thing that popped in my mind. Little did I know it'd carry on with me into my professional career. I feel like as I climb the rank ladder, I'm definitely collecting more blood on my face, the blood of my victims, as any serial killer would do.
Yeah, different options as well, which is why it's confusing us.
Basically just freestyled on us.
I don't want people to come think I'm actually a serial killer, though. I quit my software engineering job earlier last year to pursue Hearthstone full-time. I wasn't qualified for any big tournaments when I quit my job. I wasn't a big streamer. I pretty much had next to no resources other than some money I had saved up. And I basically had a dream of being a Hearthstone player, and I put in a lot of hard work and put in a lot of effort. It is possible to take a risk and have it pay off.
bloodyface, showing that control can get the job done versus aggro, even with these quest rogues.
So it's pretty frequent that I'll stay up for 24 hours prepping. I feel a lot of anxiety, getting closer to the deck submission deadline. I just want to make sure every card in my lineup's perfect. When I'm not playing Hearthstone and I want to find my happy spot, the best thing I do is just take a bath. I find taking a bath just to be very relaxing, just soaking in the water. To my fans, I'll stay as calm and collected during the match as I am in my bathtub.
Yeah, last year, I kind of quit my studies. I finished my first degree, and then I decided not to go for master and try to give a shot for Hearthstone and playing competitively. Well, I would say that actually being the electrical engineering student is kind of the same as being the aspiring Hearthstone pro in a lot of ways. I've always been into maths and stuff, like not only at the university, but even before. I would say my family is the main reason. Like, they always led me to analyze stuff. So starting with like playing board games. Me, my younger brother, and my two parents, we played a lot of board games, even computer games. We actually played StarCraft together when I was like 6. The greatest motivation in life, just to trying to be the best in anything. Like, if it's work, if it's just card games, if it's like being a good person or whatever, like just trying to be the best is always what a person should do, I think. No, I don't believe in fate. It would be my girlfriend. Yeah, I actually really do call her usually after all of the important matches. I could definitely imagine myself as a card game designer, doing stuff like this, inventing new mechanics, inventing new cards, even possibly drawing cards or whatever. That's something I like as well. If I could bring one card to the executives, it would definitely have a new mechanic, which they have never even thought about, but I can't tell you yet. That would be a secret for now.
Welcome back, everybody, to the HCT Winter Championship. Once again, I'm TJ, joined by the Admiral. That's Admiral. Yep. About to jump into game number 2 here between bloodyface and Faeli. A crazy game number 1. It's been Zerek's Cloning Gallery Priest versus the Togwaggle Druid. But at the end, bloodyface had some insurmountable pressure.
Why'd you say it like that?
Because that's what it was.
It was a crazy game in the grand scheme of things, but in terms of the matchup, that was pretty standard.
Pretty standard, yeah. It did fit one of the paths that I had laid out in turn 4 or 5 of that game.
This game's going to go one of 3 ways. Number 1, Faeli's going to win the game. Number 2, bloodyface is going to win the game. Number 3, they're going to tie somehow.
I don't think they can tie.
There's got to be a way they can tie.
If you obliterate
Yeah, good luck. There's got to be a way to discover a taunt.
you obliterate an abomination.
Yeah, there we go.
Or you just kill an abomination. Is there a way that you can get an abomination?
Probably not.
We have turned our curse into our strength.
Yeah, there's not. Dang it.
Reporting for duty.
All right, so the tie option's off.
Yeah. There's got to be a way.
I guess it could go turn limit.
Yeah.
No, it can't.
I'll think of one. Just
If neither of them ever did anything the entirety of the game.
keep casting.
Now you put me on the spot.
Nah, can't think of one. Just kidding. Prince Kelseth in the opening hand for Faeli, as well as a Devil's Orc, but no Death Rattle activations.
I think you'll take it.
You want to talk about the deck construction here a little bit for Faeli?
It is quite non-greedy, which I do like about the deck. I think that the super greedy versions of Death Rattle Hunter are a bit out of touch with how aggressive the metagame can actually be. So I like the fact that he's gone with a Mind Control tech. It's an open deck list format as well, so players know what they're up against. Mind Control tech definitely affects the way that you think. 2 copies of Spellbreaker, which has started to become standard since Hunter's Mark, is no longer an option. You need something to shut down, big, powerful things that are you would otherwise Hunter's Mark. And Defender of Argus, which has become quite standard, and actually no 4th charge on the Beast. And it's not a Savannah Highway either. It's gone with Amani Warbear. Which I really like. I think turn 7 is one of the weakest turns in Death Rattle Hunter without a 2-card combination, and Amani Warbear is pretty good off Katharina. and it's something you can do on turn 7 that provides defense. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the big keys to the fourth beast dynamic that you have inside of Death Rattle Hunter is it needs to in some way play defense.
Yeah, and this is the one that kind of fills an otherwise empty gap in the Death Rattle Hunter, like you mentioned, that turn 7 right before your power play of Katharina. So, cards that he ended up cutting, which we've seen in the more greedy list, Stitch Tracker, missing from the deck in place of, or, well, now in place of the Stitch Trackers is Gluttonous Ooze and Mind Control Tech, along with the Defender of Argus. So, definitely an interesting take on the deck. And Faeli's lineup across the board is just pretty unique. Cube Warlock, that Death Rattle Hunter that's pretty safe deck construction, Control Priest, and Togwaggle Druid. So a little bit different take on kind of the anti-control style.
Interesting pickup for Faeli, where now he has a very defined endgame plan. The key now is how do you get to endgame? You know, ideally for Faeli, he coins out Katharina in this spot. Does he have the liberty to do that, I guess is my question. You know, something I'm looking at right now is Faeli has Corpse Taker and has Flanking Strike. So with your opponent's best play, Bloodyface is, you know, the bread and butter play of the deck is going to be Corpse Taker on turn 4. And Faeli's definitely considering that right now. You know, he'd love to just play Egg and hang on a coin, and that might be too weak. My mind tells me that this is Flanking Strike into Spellbreaker.
Yeah, because both of the powerful turn 4 plays that Bloodyface would make, or 2 of the 3, I'm looking at Corpse Taker, Blessing of Kings, True Silver Champion. True Silver Champion comes out, that answers your Flanking Strike and he pushes damage, and you don't have a Spellbreaker target the next turn.
Okay, so Faeli's trying to get Bloodyface actually to attack this egg. He's grabbed the coin exclusively after playing this egg, and he's trying to tell Bloodyface that he has play dead in hand, and that he needs the coin for something else, so that he can't afford to play dead. And what he's hoping is that Bloodyface reads into that and goes, well, next turn he's going to play dead, but he wants his coin for something. So it does give away some information about the big play, but for Bloodyface, because he has Corpse Taker, he gets to ignore that factor of play dead. And so Faeli was hoping that if it's True Silver or if it's Blessing of Kings, that the egg gets traded over and he gets some sort of advantage play from that.
Yeah, and this is overall a smart play from Bloodyface, because even if he made a hard read, say if Faeli had kept a few cards off the mulligan, most likely Death Rattle activations, then I don't think he would even go for trade over the egg, True Silver Champion, trade a 1/1 anyway. What he would do is just set up this Corpse Taker and use the True Silver Champion next turn to start picking apart the 5/5s to keep pushing 6 with the Corpse Taker.
That's really the blessing of Corpse Taker. You get to ignore all those signs that Faeli was just trying to send you. You get to completely ignore them. Faeli was hoping that Bloodyface did not have Corpse Taker.
And I think at this stage of the competition, that's not something you can afford. I think the play that you had outlined, which is Flanking Strike into Spellbreaker to answer either of the powerful turn 4 plays that Bloodyface is likely to make, Blessing of Kings or Corpse Taker, would have been the best way for him to fight for board.
Yeah, but the issue with that is you're giving him Spellbreaker against even Paladin, which it is a premium card against the deck after they Spike Ridge Steed or have a Valinir buff or use Blessing of Kings or what have you. It's a way to swing it back. And so, you know, the play that I had suggested is a very, very, you know, aggressive approach to the matchup. You know, instead of me hoping they don't have Corpse Taker, I'm going to hope that they don't have Spike Ridge Steed.
Okay.
Now, the problem is when Bloodyface has Spike Ridge Steed, it sets Faeli back a lot. I just think that Faeli's hand might have been strong enough to justify it since he has the Warbear and has Katharina.
Yeah.
But I think both ways you slice it, though, you're open to punishes on either side.
Yeah. This seemed like the plan from Faeli all along, because with this route, he gets to go Witchwood Grizzly into Cube on the egg, and then try and find a play for turn 6, hoping to have a Spellbreaker target, roll that into Warbear plus Katharina.
Yeah.
That seems like a good game plan.
I don't think he's going to have time because of Corpse Taker is all.
But, you know, what other options did he have? Honestly, if he had gone with the play that we just talked about, I think it would have been even further behind.
I disagree. I think he kills the 3/2 in that instance and has a 3/3 on board. Opponent plays Corpse Taker, you silence it and run over a 2/2. Your opponent has a 3/3 and a 1/1 versus your 3/3 and 3/1.
Okay, well, I was talking about the long-term plan with not having a good cube target to fill that turn 5, turn 6 gap after the Witchwood Grizzly. That was more...
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Communication breakdown.
Glad we're on the same page.
Yeah, well, Faeli's in very bad shape now.
There's 3 things that he wants to do this turn. He wants to cube the egg to try and get something on board. He's dead. He wants to Gluttonous Ooze this true server champion, but then 6, 9,
13.
11, 12, 13,
And
which
that's
he
there's
can't afford to
nothing.
because he'd be at 16, or flanking strike the corpse taker.
He's very dead, and that's really, again, the corpse taker being so vital to even Paladin. You know, you and I talked a lot about the Mulligan stage the first time that we had an appearance with even Paladin, and I am very much of the opinion that I think you need early drops, but corpse taker is just so powerful that every single time I play the deck, I really consider hard mulliganing for corpse taker. I'm like, yeah, you know what? There's enough drops in this deck.
Yeah, and I think that's the correct play to make a lot of the time. And the bonus of even Paladin is that they're never not going to have something to play on the board because of the 1-mana hero power.
Well, he's got something to play on board, and it's a 2-0 lead for bloodyface. And he's making it look easy thus far. And Faeli, you can see the nod and sort of that grimace. He's having a tough set here, but it's not unwinnable at this point. Bloodyface, though, has a pretty stark advantage when it comes to it now. He's got 3 tries left with his mid-range hunter.
And they're all like 50% plus at least matchups.
Yes, it's like mid-range hunter has been the deck of the tournament so far when you take a look at how everything has been performing. And that is definitely not the spot you want to be in.
He has to be one of these 3 decks with mid-range hunter: Cube Warlock, Togwaggle Druid, Death Rattle Hunter. Seems like a pretty good spot if you're Bloodyface right now. Still intensely focused, though. A lot on the line here. It's a spot in that quarterfinals. But 2 games in the books. Will Bloodyface be able to close this out in a sweep? Or will Faeli make this a comeback? We'll find out right after this.
Most players are on the same tier, but I do believe that some players are on the next level, being able to build new decks that people don't expect and trying to push the metagame even further. The level 1 style of thinking is, oh, they nerfed aggro decks, I'm just going to bring greedy decks because the aggro decks are now weaker. Well, the next level of thinking is, okay, well, because people are bringing really greedy decks, I'm going to try and build aggro decks to beat them. For this tournament, I ended up testing a lot of different aggro decks. I really wanted to bring an all aggro lineup. The problem was, aggro kind of has a big question mark over it. It hasn't really proven itself since the nerfs, with Odd Rogue and even Shaman and Hunter all taking hits. It just felt like the power level wasn't really there. Because the nerfs were announced 2 weeks before the deck submission deadline, it's kind of hard to figure out how the meta is going to develop because of that. Bunny Hopper brought full aggro, and he has the best group for his lineup. From a number standpoint, Bunny Hopper is very favored, but just because on paper you're 55% to win against them, if you're playing against the best players in the world, they're going to try and close that margin as much as possible. So I just felt like if aggro's not that good, I'll just bring the most greedy decks that I can while also trying to have an edge against the most greedy decks. If you're the driving force of the metagame, you're always one step ahead of everyone else, and just because you know all the best decks in the meta doesn't mean you know how to beat the meta. I think everyone in this tournament that's not already qualified for Worlds definitely wants me, Bunny Hopper, and Viper to all do well, because that increases their chances of making it to Worlds, although I think my opponents still are looking to beat me.
I've been playing since the release. I've been focusing on Hearthstone more like last 2 years, and 2018 was the best year for me. It kind of started with me leaving my former Czech team, and I started going to some major events, and I had to go there on my own. So I went to Bangkok, then I went to Oslo for the HCT tour stops. I managed to place second in Oslo, and that's where it all started. I got some money for my future trips, and it was a nice experience and got me in the right direction. I designed my lineup so it doesn't really have any horrible matchups out there. Like, there are lineups that are really greedy, there are lineups that are aggro, like Bunny Hopper and Viper are playing the aggro ones, which are supposedly good against the greedy. I'm not really scared of either of those, because they usually have at least one deck that I'm really perfectly able to beat. The side effect of this is that I don't have really any opponent that I would be like super favorite to beat. I'm not totally greedy, but I went with the greedy decks mostly, but I'm missing the Clone Priest, which is in a lot of lineups the weak point, I would say, against the aggro. So I'm playing Control Priest instead, which obviously leaves me a little bit against the greedy guys. My lineup is just a hybrid between those, I would say. In particular, I'm running a lot of Spellbreakers. A lot of people brought Even Paladin, which might be a deck that's pretty good against aggro and against the greedy guys as well. I estimated correctly that people are gonna play it a lot. So Spellbreaker is one card I'm looking forward for playing a lot because it's gonna shut down those Spike Rich Steeds and a lot of other cards. In general, what I would like to do is always take my time, because one thing is when you play too quickly, it's definitely gonna show your opponent some information about your hand or anything at some point. So I would like to keep my time spent in each turn like kind of constant, so I'm not giving any reads for my opponents in this way. Never think you've been in this situation and you know what to do. Like you should always think about it like as you are the first time in that situation, and then you might come up with something you don't know. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for all the support. And ahojte všichni v Česku a díky moc, že mi fandíte a snad se nám bude takhle dařit na čempech. Čus!
Welcome back, everybody, to the Winter Championship. The players get swords and I don't. This is unfair. That's all I got.
I can tell. It shows. Mr. Shorts.
Yep. I get it. Yep. Well, bloodyface has Hunter left against Faeli's, I don't know, control lineup. He said in that interview that he kind of built his lineup to beat just about everything. That's kind of what I mentioned earlier. It's a unique take on Control Buster because it has a Control Buster style with a lot of combo elements with Cube Warlock, Death Rattle Hunter, Control Priest, and Togwaggle Druid, but all of those decks have the added bonus of having some game against aggro decks. They're basically the anti-aggro equivalents of all of those styles. But that makes you sacrifice percentage points in other combo matchups. And when you're talking about a deck like Midrange Hunter, yes, it can be aggressive, but it can also go long game. And it's really hard to get through every stage of the game while checking all the threats from Midrange Hunter. It's one of the reasons why so many players brought it to this event.
Yeah, kind of, talking about what Faeli said in that piece as well. I do think that he has built his lineup with exactly what he said. Now, the thing that happens when you build a lineup that way is that you end up with a deck that's just not quite super strong versus anything, but it's not super weak to anything either. It's a lot of very even matchups where mulligans are paramount and the openings are paramount.
Speaking of openings, look at the openings for both players.
They're good.
Dire Maul into Crackling Raisin Maul for bloodyface, and literally the 3 highest win rate cards in the mulligan when you're talking about Cube Warlock.
What's the third one?
Doomsayer against Midrange Hunter.
Oh, I thought Doomsayer would have been the second one.
He's only missing a Kobold Librarian. And that would be the ultimate...
Wait, so what's the second one then that you were talking about?
I don't know the order. Skull's the highest. I think
well, of course Skull's the highest. Look at it.
It's like...
No, stop. Just look at the Skull. Just look at the picture.
I'm looking at it.
Okay. Art is deterministic of win rate. I'm convinced of this. The better a card is, the better art it has.
Yeah.
Look at Ziliax real quick.
It's good art.
It's great art.
But Skull, Doomsayer, Lesser, Amethyst...
Look at that animation! Of course it's a high win rate card, TJ!
Well, okay, so this is something that we saw yesterday in the Thunder versus Psymount matchup.
Whoa, way different, though.
It's a little bit different.
Psymount had a coin if he was going to make that play.
He had a coin, yes.
Very different.
So a little bit tougher to make. But when you see a Dire Maul and you see a 3-keep...
You had me a Dire Maul.
You play that Doomsayer. And Faeli played the Doomsayer. And thus saved himself a lot of potential life.
Yep. Baited Arrow comes in hand for bloodyface. He talked at length about Baited Arrow and why he included it. And it's quite a brilliant choice, actually. He was talking about how when he's playing this mid-range Hunter deck, very often he would have his opponent just turn 5 play Ziliax, attack a thing, and he's like, oh, I'm not in good shape now. I need to find a way to swing turn back to Ziliax. And you think about the natural progression of Hunter, it very often wants to do that exact same thing. You know, using Candle Shot to chip away minions, having Crackling Razor Maul provide a valuable adaptation effect, Flanking Strike. The best way to get around that Ziliax is Baited Arrow. It's a 2 health minion that won't have its Divine Shield. You get to kill it, and you get to overkill it. You get a 5/5. It was, when I heard the explanation, I was like, oh, that's so smart. And that's exactly what's happening.
And not many people are putting Baited Arrow in their mid-range hunter. This is not an epiphany that many players had, but it's really smart.
I love this play.
This is also, oh man,
I
this is
love
cool.
this play. Bloodyface says, minions in play better than minions in hand.
Yeah.
And I love this play.
Yeah.
Skull in play
For a
is
different-
way better than Skull in hand.
For a different reason, this play is a little easier to spot,
Yeah.
especially when you have 2 demons in hand. Once that Void Lord comes down, even with Hunter's Mark, it'll be tough for Bloodyface to piece together damage to the face quick
Yeah.
enough to stop this train from Faeli.
And remember what I was talking about with the openings, the mulligans, that being such a paramount thing with the way that Faeli's decks are built. A lot of that was a nod to how strong the field was at this tournament. The stronger your opponents are, the less willing I think you should be to be trying to build decks or make plays that are opening your opponent to doing something worse than what you would expect them to do. They are very often not going to make a bad play. They're going to often make a very good one. And when that's the case, you need powerful things to happen in your deck. Not just tricky things and smart things and clever things. You need powerful things. And that's what Faeli's going for, and that's what he's had so far. Faeli is in such a good shape to take this game that I honestly think we could begin talking about the next one. Faeli had the Doomsayer, had the Skull, the Void Lord's in play. It's catastrophic things would have to happen for Faeli to have this game go away.
Yeah. Have to have a lot of dead draws. Bloodyface would have to draw either Deathstalker or Rexar and get the best zombies possible.
Have to have a lot of dead plays, too.
Yeah. And even gets a really nice Defile here with Cobalt Librarian pickup and able to copy the Void.
Good luck with that one.
Needs Unleash the Hounds plus 2 Timberwolves.
Bloodyface needs... There's nothing here.
Well, he can get a decent Baited Arrow here to take out the first Void Lord, but Doomguard's going to come down to answer that. Got Ziliax to back it up.
Gul'dan's already here.
He's at 18. That's pretty darn healthy, if you ask me.
Yeah, honestly, Faeli, he's going to life tap some more. Doesn't need to, though. The only thing, the Faeli right now, he's going to just think about, how do I not die to double kill command? That's the priority.
This one will be very useful.
Wow. I think the only thing better was just one of the demons themselves.
Yeah.
A pass on the possessed lackey though.
Precision. Perfection.
Start shipping it upstairs.
Bonus of this is that he gets to slim down his board for Unleash the Hounds. Not that that would be hugely impactful.
I don't think really much of anything's hugely impactful at this point.
I'm going to go ahead and agree with you.
Faeli's done the tough stuff.
Concede comes out.
Yeah, that's not an early concession. That's common sense right there. Bloodyface says, all right, let's just get the next game. I believe you.
Still 2 more chances to do it. One of the reasons why Cube Warlock continues to survive in the current metagame is just because sometimes the draw just pans out in a way where you would be hard-pressed to find a way to lose.
That wasn't even that tough of a thing to have happen. You drew a Doomsayer, you drew a Skull, you drew a Demon.
You drew a Spellstone.
Like, it's like half the deck is Doomsayers, removal spells, and Demons.
Yeah.
Now, granted, without Skull, that game's much tougher.
Yes.
But, you know, for as many times as people talk about, oh, well, they had their Leroy, or, oh, they had their Keleseth, or, oh, they had their whatever legendary it's going to be. Well, yeah, that's why they put it in the deck, to draw the card. I don't put cards in my deck to not draw them. That's why I don't play Cloning Gallery Priest.
There's a couple decks where you put cards in there to not draw them.
Yeah, Cloning Gallery Priest.
There's more.
Is there another one in Standard right now?
Any deck that ran patches, but maybe not in Standard.
You just love talking about old decks.
Yeah. Great card that patches is.
The day that TJ became a dad was the day that TJ instantaneously became older than myself and Kidler combined, which is a feat that no other man has yet to, ever accomplish so far.
Fun fact. I am the youngest of all the casters casting the HCT Winter Championship. Dan is the second youngest. He is 2 months older than I am, I believe. Maybe a couple more months. And the only one with a kid.
I was trying to think of something clever and funny to say, but I was like, this just isn't really like a clever, that's just an actual fun fact.
Yeah, it is.
I think this might be the first time you've ever had just an actual fun fact.
How dare you?
Usually your facts are just weird and convoluted.
Yeah, another fun fact. Faeli's name actually comes from a Latin word meaning skull of Minari.
Okay. You see what I mean? We just talked about this. Faeli's coming back on the Togwaggle Druid. A matchup that at times can be very tough, but bloodyface, for the most part, is going to have the advantage overall in the matchup. And, part of the reason why is just because of the efficiency of the minions that are there and how scary a lot of them are. A big one to look at is like Animal Companion, and then moving down the list, the copy of Savannah High Maintenance there. And if bloodyface can ever set up a Scavenging Hyena turn, that's really solid. His main game plan is just to chip away, but the real game plan is burst damage at some point when Faeli can't do anything about it. But now that he's drawn Oaken Summons, I think that Faeli is in a pretty good spot to set up a defensive position and have bloodyface really have his work cut out for him. I think a lot of it boils down to how Faeli opens against the early minions, and if bloodyface even has them to begin with.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways that this matchup can pan out, kind of fringe case scenarios. Hunter does tend to cycle through their deck pretty well with Master's Call because it draws 3 cards for 3 mana. But one of the ways that bloodyface can win, even post Togwaggle Azalina, is to get some combination of hold on to Dire Frenzy and use it to shuffle minions in the deck at the right time. In that case, Faeli would also have Dire Frenzy, so it doesn't negate fatigue, but it allows you to put pressure on post. And the second one is to get some amount of Raptor Hatchlings to keep the pressure up later into fatigue to try and offset some of it.
Raptor Hatchlings, you mean from the Deathstalker Rexar?
From the Deathstalker Rexar zombies, that's correct.
I was like thinking about the Abomination comment from a couple games. I was like, where does he get these Raptor Hatchlings from?
Yeah. Well,
and then you explained it to me.
Yeah. And
after I explained it to you.
And since he has Deathstalker Rexar in his hand already, no risk of handing that over to Faeli post Togwaggle. And also, he's most likely going to have time to play it before Faeli's able to get his own copy.
Wow. I'm really curious about this coin usage for Faeli, because I thought this was a fine turn to just Ferocious Howl and hang on to it, and then see how bloodyface chooses to develop. In this spot, you're kind of just opening yourself to your opponent having a flanking strike go relatively even on their turn 4, where their turn 4 is just not very good to begin with. The coin also costs you a play like Malfurion into Dream Petal Florist or vice versa. Faeli's included a copy of Innervate in the deck, just has Innervate in there. That coin usage to me felt very aggressive for what it was, because I just don't think that needed to happen. Now, the caveat to that is Faeli really doesn't want to draw Ironwood Golem. He wants to draw the Oaken Summons.
Yeah.
And you want to ramp your mana, and there's a Greedy Sprite in the deck. So there's some benefits to it that I see, but I think overall that was more efficiently used as a Ferocious Howl.
Well, I can see where his thought process is, right? If he plays Ferocious Howl that turn, and bloodyface, after playing Master's Call, has a good amount of development, even if he just plays a Scavenging Hyena plus another beast, Faeli's forced to spend at least his next turn playing removal, so that Scavenging Hyena doesn't get out of control and force him to use Naturalize. The longer he has to go playing removal, playing from behind, the later it's going to be before he plays Oaken Summons, which is a bigger chance of him drawing the Ironwood Golems. So it kind of works even for the point that you made where, yeah, you want to play that Oaken Summons out, but the longer you wait, the more opportunity you get bloodyface to play proactive, the longer it's going to be before you play that Oaken Summons.
Okay. You know, this is probably one of the reasons that when my experience playing Togwaggle Druid, I do very well without the coin, and I do very poorly with it. Maybe I'm learning something here. But the way that I'm kind of seeing it is, you know, Faeli's just, now the draw seems slow to me. Like, turn 6 is dead. We're looking at swipe. Good card. But not when you're against Savannah Highmane.
Yeah.
Imagine coining Malfurion into this.
Yeah, but then there would have been a Scavenging on board.
Or
And
imagine
maybe
drawing
an
Nourish
Orphan
and
Summons.
feeling great.
Yeah. That was the plan all along.
Imagine you had Nourish with the coin. You could Nourish for mana, coin Ultimate Infestation. I think I'm right. I really do.
It's hard to say the pan out, and I'm not saying that.
And I can't wait for people to tell me how wrong I am and actually give me an explanation on it. But until then.
I didn't say you were wrong, but I gave you an explanation.
Well, I'm waiting for someone to tell me I'm wrong and give me an explanation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not telling you you're wrong. I just was trying to maybe explain the thought process behind Faeli's.
Well, I get the thought process. That's not the hard part to understand. I wanted to explain the pitfall of it. In my opinion, so far in this tournament, of the games that you and I have been casting, I think I've seen some suspect coin usage.
I would agree. Or some suspect non-coin usage.
Which is technically a coin usage. You
Yeah.
chose to save it, which I guess is not really using it. It's like penny saved, penny earned sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Penny in your loafers.
Coin saved is a coin earned. You're really happy to see that happen, not on the Savannah Highmane, but you're really sad to see that Dire Frenzy happen on basically anything with Wind Fury.
Yep.
Faeli's got a good life total to work with, so, you know, this is the start now of a real threat from bloodyface.
And the plays next turn, honestly, just aren't that great for Faeli.
Quickly.
This 5/5 Wind Fury has to be dealt with, and the only way to deal with it this turn is to swipe hero power.
Yeah.
Which means you do nothing else.
I imagine he's going to end up going with Malfurion on this turn and using the hero power to take out the Crackling Razor Maw. It just helps pad the life total, and I'm not convinced that you go for Poisonous, but maybe you do. I think I'm more interested in just padding the life total because there's Ultimate Infestation into Arcane Tyrant on the following turn. So I think both, you know, the swipe play and the Malfurion play are reasonable. I just think the Malfurion's more efficient because it leaves you with a tool in hand that is, you know, a cheap utility. The Malfurion's very expensive utility, and it's just more important to be using your expensive cards.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily saying that swipe was a decent option. I was mostly saying that that's the only way he could deal with that 5/5 and protect his life total even more. But I do think that Malfurion's a better way to do that, especially considering his follow-up play. So, but bloodyface able to have a very good hand with a lot of options.
We're entering some pretty dangerous territory for Faeli, though. And that's the thing. You give mid-range hunter an inch, and it takes a mile. This Crackling Razor Maw brings some heat. Woo!
Look out! Mid-range hunter feels like one of those decks where if you take an inch from them, they still take a mile.
Who takes the mile? The hunter?
Yeah, they just take everything.
If you take an inch from them, they take a mile. That sentence is constructed very conspicuously.
Well, you said if you give them an inch, they'll
They
take a mile.
Right.
I'm saying you take an inch away from them. They'll take the
And
mile
then
anyway.
them, take the mile.
Yeah, the hunter.
What? I'm just confused.
It's a very common saying.
Wow,
Maybe you should-
poisonous on the Crackling Razor Maw, which means Dire Frenzy puts that Wind Fury Hyena out of range of Ultimate Infestation, which means Faeli is in a heap of trouble here because that's 16 attack worth of Wind Fury that he cannot handle right now. He's going to have to tank 8 if he wants to kill that Hyena.
Wow. He can tank 8 and then still gain 12 with the branching paths, but then he leaves 5 damage on board.
This is problem.
He would go up to 24 after that with 5 damage on board, so he'd effectively be at 19 with still with Ultimate Infestation in hand. So it's not, it's bad, but it's not
real bad. And the reason why it's bad is because Faeli had set up the game to be Ultimate Infestation this turn.
Yeah.
The turn with the Poisonous on the rush created a point of disruption where now Faeli's operating from behind. He needs to be getting ahead with a turn like that, and instead he's just still on par. If you could consider this on par, he's behind technically.
if there's any shining light in this situation, it's the fact that the minion that bloodyface shuffled into his deck from Dire Frenzy doesn't have an immediate impact that turn. The downside to that is that it's a 2-mana 5/5.
Yeah, and there's also a Tundra Rhino in Bloodyface's hand right now. So akin to the way that Bloodyface had used that flanking strike on his Divine Shield Dire Mole, I think that there is a real consideration for Bloodyface doing that with Baited Arrow on this turn. And if that's the case, what that means is Tundra Rhino plus the Hyena plus the Dire Mole plus the Scavenging Hyena yields a lot of from-hand damage if something sticks to the board. And that's really the 1-2 punch. But Bloodyface is clearly more interested in just getting big things in play. And I like that he's adding this to it because he's still accounting for Ultimate Infestation here.
Yep.
That's been the goal for Bloodyface. Keep my opponent from having a comfortable Ultimate Infestation. But there's no option anymore.
Well, 15 cards left in the deck for Faeli. There's still an Innervate left, and he's drawing 5 cards. There's a 1 in 3 chance to draw an Innervate to be able to Innervate out a Spellstone. So that may affect this target for Ultimate Infestation.
Well, I imagine it probably hitting the 5/5.
Well, but...
Oh, it's a good point with, like, Spring Paw and stuff.
Yeah, I think... Well, I think both Spring Paws have been used, so that's not an option. But he's got to think about what the damage breakpoints are, and if Ultimate Infestation, the 5/5, actually nets him health, which I don't think it does, because the Scavenging Unit would automatically go up to 4, so it'd just be taking 1 less off there, and then he'd have the option for trades to make a really big minion. And does not pick up the Innervate.
But does have Swipe, Spellstone, Naturalize now, and a second Ultimate Infestation. So Faeli does have a bit of breathing room for next turn at least. A lot of options in hand to keep the board clear. And that's part of the main goal right now is just get Bloodyface down to low resources.
I count 19.
Oh my, I count 19 as well. 2 from the Tundra Rhino in hand. That yields 1 from the Dire Mole. That leaves him with 4 mana left over for 5 from Kill Command.
Yeah.
And then 1 more from the Candle Shot. So
or just the Hero Power instead of the Dire Mole Candle Shot, same outcome.
It's going to be Rexar. Oh, it's not. It's double Baited Arrow.
Double Baited Arrow. Yeah.
Yes, way better. This is 5/5s versus not 5/5s.
And gets 2 relatively difficult to use cards out of hand and exchanges them for 5/5s, which is, I think, the additional bonus to that.
Yeah. Bloodyface starting to run a little bit low on juice. So Faeli, if he's able to clear out this board state right here and keep a reasonable life total, still some winning chance. But mind you, there's still 5 more 2-mana 5/5s in the deck for Bloodyface. Deathstalker Rexar yet to be used, and Faeli hasn't seen either Kill Command yet.
My thoughts are plagued.
So we can pick apart this board with removal, but this may sound weird. Ultimate Infestation is not looking too bad here.
It doesn't look that bad to me.
You burn a few cards, but you have a chance to pick up an Innervate, and if you do pick up the Innervate, you get to take out 2 of these 5/5s, deck yourself out. But maybe just a little bit too risky.
Well, this gives you a greedy sprite. You get 12 armor right away to breathe with. You don't want to have to use that on your opponent's terms, the armor gain. You want to use it on your terms. This gives Faeli more card draw for the following turn, and it gives him the option to kill 2 minions as well. This is the strongest on-board thing that Faeli can do.
Yeah. And this empties out his hand to be able to use Ultimate Infestation next turn. So.
Oh, boy.
So he still has, what, 4 more 2/5 Hyenas left in the deck?
Yeah, 4 more 2-mana 5/5s, yeah. Shuffled 6 total in with the Dire Frenzies.
I wonder.
So that burst from hand that he needs to account for would be like 12 with no kill commands. I guess it would still be the same with a whether it's 2 Hyenas in Tundra Rhino or 1 Hyena, Tundra Rhino, kill command.
Yeah. 12 is about the spot you're looking against Hunter.
Yeah. But for Bloodyface here, it's about
repetitive damage.
Repetitive damage, so building up the strongest board possible.
Quickly.
Which,
I think it's pretty straightforward, but for bloodyface, you know, you do need to consider at some point what the Tundra Rhino actually looks like in terms of your damage output, because you're not going to be able to use all of it in one turn. You're only going to have a, you know, a slightly limited amount. So where does the kill command actually fit? He's looking like it's going to be, you know, a turn or so from now. As I think bloodyface got everything in there, but
yeah, he tracked
yeah,
over. The only card I saw since it was so quick was a Dire Maul. So one of the cards that he tracked over was Dire Maul. I did not see the other one. It was too fast.
Ooh.
Spreading Plague, though, is just kind of...
It's just extra life. It's 20 extra health
It's extra
right now.
life, but it doesn't advance his game plan right now. Because he's not going to win the game by just surviving every turn. He's going to win the game by swapping the deck and then surviving every turn.
Yeah. 7 cards left. You need to get Dream Petal Florist online. Twig is one of the 7 remaining cards. There's an Innervate in those, but you need to, like, you have to have the deck swap happen all together.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have, like, burst damage off the swap because both naturalizers are gone.
There's an Arcane Tyrant left and an Innervate. I don't know if there's a Spellstone left. That would be ideal if you were able to pick up Innervate Spellstone. So last 2 cards are Innervate and...
Death is eternal. My turn
Is it second Spellstone?
I think it is Spellstone.
Okay.
Yes. Use both Branching Pass, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I wonder.
24 damage I count from bloodyface's side.
Oh, wait, it's Naturalize.
No, he used both naturalizes.
Oh, really?
I think. He had to use them early.
Okay.
I believe so, anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see, I guess. But you talked about it. Bloodyface running out of juice a little bit. Still a lot of burst, but not real much big stuff to play on board. And that
Wow.
fixes that.
So that's 6 extra. That's 30 damage he had this turn. Did he need all the mana to do it, though? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That'd be an 11-mana turn, excuse me.
Fate.
Oh, boy.
Look at Tundra Rhino
Stealth, I imagine.
Stealth, or the Ironford Grizzly could still be an option with Taunt, but it seems like in this case the Stealth would be better.
Yeah, very much protecting that 5/5 as well.
Was Spellstone.
Faeli's close. It's close to a full recovery spot.
The bad thing is, even once he swaps, Bloodyface's deck is not that small. As I mentioned earlier, with both Master Skull and Tracking, Hunter can tear through their deck.
Yeah.
So he's not going to get much of a deck back, and Bloodyface has Deathstalker Rexar online. He won't be able to copy with Azalina. The bonus that he gets is that he gets to copy the zombies that Bloodyface creates and holds on to.
Yeah, I think just the big one I'm looking at is he has to set Bloodyface to fatigue sooner rather than later, lest Faeli begin to fatigue, and you can't keep up with them at that point. You know, that's really one of the reasons why using the naturalizes, while it feels good on board, later down the road it hurts a lot because you do not have a way to force your opponent deep into fatigue.
My thoughts are plagued.
And this is smart from Faeli as well. Just tank this down, get the discount from your Dream Petal Florist, and put the pressure on Bloodyface to have something very impactful this turn. One of the issues I'm seeing is that we're stranding 2 Spreading Plagues in hand that perhaps could have absorbed some damage.
Yeah, but as we talked about, it would
So
absorb
tough to do
damage,
that.
but not advance the game plan at all.
Yes, I think it's just a risk you often have to take. I look at 20 extra health, and the issue with it is that it's coming in the form of 5/5s. A lot of that damage is, so they just get to run over them with a single attack. When Spreading Plague has to, when each 1/5 is absorbing multiple attacks, that's really where you benefit the most from Spreading Plague.
So he did pick the stealth. It looked like Jungle Panther. So I'm looking at try and find a zombies that's low cost, high attack. Play this Tundra Rhino. That's 6 on board, plus you get the charge effect. And you have a charging 2 mana, 5/5 in hand, plus kill command. That's 10 from hand, 6 on board, that's 16. So if he has to go for his full combo next turn, he would be at 22 health. You need to find a zombies with an extra 8. But he can also bank the zombies later and have a 5/5 on board.
I'm kind of interested by, I guess the kill on the Dream Petal Forest is a nod to if you leave it play for another turn that Faeli is going to have potential to just sit here for another turn and then have an insane turn on the Togwaggle Azalina, where he suddenly gets to play a lot of cards from hand before he has to do all his whole thing. And I think that's really, you know, a point of disruption now for Faeli's side, where he absorbed 5 damage, he set up a kill on the Hyena, and perhaps gets to try to do something to stave off the pressure a bit. Because in Faeli's spot, I think he anticipates having to use the swap back on the next turn as well. You need to account for that if your opponent just spends that 5 mana and goes, okay, well here, I'll take the deck back now.
Yeah.
Then you have to use the Azalina copy that you have to turn that back around at some point.
It's going to come down to it, and honestly...
Death is eternal. My turn is not.
Smart play dumping the Innervate to bank the mana, so that way he may be able to play something that Bloodyface has since he's swapping the hands.
Yeah.
The tough part there was thinking, do I want to use my cards to spend that mana before I swap, or do I want to use have options to use my opponent's cards to spend that mana?
Yeah, this is, I think if you're in Bloodyface's seat right now, this is, you know, kind of terrifying. And if you're in Faeli's seat right now, it's kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, but there's a lot of tension happening with the timing of this because Faeli only has 19 left and because Bloodyface has the Tundra Rhino stealthed.
Yeah.
You know, there's a chance that the Tundra Rhino just doesn't come out of stealth until the turn Bloodyface is going to win.
And I'm trying to think of the cards that are left in Bloodyface's deck that Faeli has stolen. I think Headhunter's Hatchet, Unleash the Hounds. I don't know.
Hyenas?
He's played one Hyena at least.
He's played multiple Hyenas.
Okay, well
like
then
the
there's no Hyenas
the
left.
5/5s. Well, remember 6 of
Oh,
them
the
got shuffled
Hyenas.
in.
Yeah, I thought you meant Scavenging Hyena.
No,
you
no,
just
yeah.
meant the normal Hyenas.
Bloodyface pulls this out of stealth and then builds a beast. Oh, that has to not be correct. I think Bloodyface counted something differently or got ahead of himself somehow.
Wait.
That has charge.
And deals 1 damage, but I think that would have been the same as kill command, so that's 9, 10. So that's 1 damage off.
Well, yeah, who cares?
Yeah.
It's 1 damage off. Sounds great.
He's got kill command, Tundra Rhino, not cancel that next turn, and he would have to deal with the board. So it wasn't Unleash the Hounds. He does have Timberwolf and Flanking Strike.
Faeli has to get above 1. He has no option other than to spend 2 mana to get above 1, lest Bloodyface swap the decks back and fatigue kills him. So he only has an 8 mana turn here. Number 2, he's got to kill everything on board that can deal him 3 damage in that effect.
Well, honestly, he just knows that he's dead because he swapped the decks and knows that there's Tundra Rhino, kill command in hand.
There you go.
So no,
a much better explanation.
He's got to be above 8.
Yeah, so
and clear the board.
Faeli's got to deal 32 damage this turn.
Yeah, that's more likely.
31. It's a 2-hit of fatigue.
Yeah.
Apologies.
So, yeah, he's dead. No matter what he does, he has the only way he can gain armor is hero power. And his maximum damage is Tundra Rhino, Unleash the Hounds, Timberwolf, which is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 17. And he's going to try and move through it, but this is the end of the road for Faeli.
It's been hard fought, but in this one, Bloodyface just kept the pressure up the entirety of the game. And there was no way for Faeli to stabilize that position. In so many turns, Faeli had set up a play that was gonna get the game for him, and then Bloodyface would come back with a way to disrupt that turn. And there it is, the smile across, the kill command, the 3-1 for Bloodyface to knock Faeli out of the tournament and move on to the top 8.
A very intense series. And bloodyface on his way to potentially another top 4, maybe even a back-to-back finals appearance. Some close calls, but overall, very well played. And you got to feel for Faeli. He had an incredible year.
Yes.
With tour stops, now with HCT, gave himself one final chance to qualify for the World Championship and ultimately didn't get there, but a hell of a player.
Yeah, my heart goes to Faeli for this one because, this was the last one of the season that we had going for this one. So the 2019 season is where he'd have to look forward to continue this. But again, a heck of a player, and I hate to see him go out, but that's Hearthstone. Someone's got to win and someone's got to lose.
Well, bloodyface is the man of the hour, and currently he's standing by with Raven for an interview.
Thanks a lot, TJ. First off, congratulations on the win. Definitely a lot to unpack in that series, but I just want to ask you a question. If we wind back all the way to game 1 against Druid, when things were getting a little bit wacky with all the deck swaps and Azalina, as a player, how do you actually deal with situations like that where it may not have ever played out like that before in practice?
Those are my favorite kind of situations. I love playing wacky games, and I don't know. I feel like that's naturally like what I have more fun doing, and when you have more fun doing something, you generally do it better. So I don't know. There's no like secret. I like those kind of games.
Okay, and talking about the Hunter as well, just in general, Hunter's extremely well represented in this tournament, but you've chosen to put baited arrows in yours. Can you just take us through that and just explain to me why and what are the benefits of that?
So baited arrow does a lot of things. My favorite thing that it does is it trumps Ziliax. When they play Ziliax, train your guy, they gain the life. It's kind of a bummer. You don't want to have to like use removal on it. But baited arrow just like kills it, and you get a 5/5. It's also like 5/5s are just like kind of good against other mid-range decks. They're like generally hard to deal with. And they're also like really good against aggro, which my lineup's not great against, but it's always nice to hedge. But the real reason is because like I didn't really like second Rhino and second high main. I felt like they were a bit clunky. Usually play the first Rhino to trade to like their 3/2 or something, and I'd rather just like have a baited arrow in that situation and usually draw the second one off Master's Call anyways. So I just wanted, it was more just like I didn't want to run 2 high mains and 2 Rhinos, and arrow seemed to be a good fit.
Okay, well, makes sense to me. And finally, you've just won your match. Your next opponent will be Yu Ying going forward. So a couple of things. How are you feeling going to be going against him? And also, are you feeling the extra pressure of potentially being able to go back-to-back top 4s at championships, which is, frankly, quite the feat?
Oh, yeah, a lot of pressure. I mean, Bunny and Hopper and Viper, they're not making it look easy. Like, they're already through the top 8, and potentially we could all be in top 4, so I don't want them to show me up,
Yeah, and what do you think about Yu Ying? Are you worried about him as a player, or?
I haven't looked at his line. I think he has Druid. I think I'm like pretty good against Druid, so I know he's like Odd Rogue too. I don't remember all of his decks, but I feel pretty good as long as he's got a Druid in there.
Okay, well, you've been doing well versus Druid so far, and he does have a Hakar Druid to sort of play around with, so I look forward to more exciting matches. But congratulations again at bloodyface. We'll check back in with TJ and Admirable.
Thanks very much, Raven, and of course, bloodyface. But I just love how poised bloodyface is in all of his interviews. And the one thing that stuck out to me about that interview was when you have more fun doing something, you generally do it better.
I think he said you just do it better.
Oh, okay.
Full stop.
Thanks for correcting me. That wasn't fun.
That was fun for me.
Taking a look at Group B, how it panned out, we saw Jing dominate his way through Group B, taking that first place spot. And bloodyface, great play across the last 3 days, but it did look a little bit more difficult for him than it may have in his past appearances. But overall, doesn't matter how you got there, it just matters that you're there.
Yep.
And we'll be seeing bloodyface and Jing from Group B in that top 8.
Yeah, it's as Sottle and Brian always say that I say it's 2 roads to El Paso, which I don't say that. I say 2 roads to El Dorado.
Yeah,
a fictional city made of gold.
There's at least 5 roads to El Paso. I would even go so far as to say there's even more than that. So I never understood why you said that, but I know you're from Texas, so you just have a soft spot in your heart for El Paso.
I don't say to El Paso, though. That's not what I say. That's what y'all say that I say. I say y'all, though. I'll give you that.
How many roads are there to Dallas, to Houston,
I don't
to
know.
Austin,
a lot.
to San Antonio?
Some say there's even more than 5.
Why don't you say those instead of El Paso? I'll never get it.
Because I don't say El Paso.
Well, me and That's Admirable are done for now. Don't worry, we got 2 more decider matches, plus 4 quarterfinals coming at you today at the Hearthstone Championship Tour. Don't go anywhere. Coming up next, it's Ike versus Ty Meow.